Frustrating, isn't it? This is what life is like for people with seizures. In any given day, they can lose seconds or even minutes of their lives. Approximately 2.7 million people in America have epilepsy. It affects more people than cerebral palsy, Parkinson's disease, and multiple sclerosis combined. My name is Lori O'Driscoll, and I am the mother of Ciara, who is 4, and Aiden, who's 1. And Ciara has been diagnosed with Dravet Syndrome, which is also called severe myoclonic epilepsy of infancy. On June 30th, 2005, I had taken her to a grocery store, and I was pushing her in the cart, and she sort of slid over, and I thought she was playing a game with me, so I sat her back up, and she slid over again, and then I thought she was shivering. So I picked her up, and when I looked at her eyes were sort of twitching, so I didn't know what it was. It sure didn't look like a seizure. I don't even think seizure was in my schema at that point. Then she started really shaking, and I said, you know what, just call 911. And the paramedics arrived. They actually took her from me and took her to the hospital, and they said she's having a seizure. It lasted for 25 minutes. At the time, she had a very slight fever. It was like 99.9. So they thought maybe it was from the fever, but they kept her in the hospital. I think it was for 3 days, and ran every test under the sun. They did a spinal tap, they did a CAT scan, an MRI, and everything came back normal, so they sent us home without medication, thinking it was most likely febrile seizures. Exactly 1 month later, we were going to a friend's bridal shower, and we drove. It took us about 2 hours to get there, so she was asleep the whole car ride. And within 5 minutes of waking up at the shower, she went into another seizure, and that one was 45 minutes. And we were close enough to the hospital that we just decided to get in the car and take her. No fever this time. So this time they said to us, you know, this is probably some sort of seizure disorder of unknown origin. And they sent us home on our first seizure medication. And right after that, she started having myoclonic jerks, which are basically second-long seizures. It's like when you're falling asleep and your leg will jerk. That's what she had, except sometimes it would be her arm, sometimes it would be her leg, sometimes it would be her head. She wasn't walking at that point, so we didn't have to worry about her falling, but when she was playing, sometimes they were so powerful it was as if someone took the back of her head and slammed her into the toy she was playing with, or the table or the floor. So very quickly I had to adapt my life so that I was literally beside her every second, because you just couldn't leave her. On November 2nd of that year, she had an hour and 15-minute long seizure and was hospitalized for a while. You're okay, Ciara. Mommy's right here. December 11th of that year, they called me in. I didn't know I was going in to get test results, which was unfortunate because I didn't bring Liam with me. But they told me at that meeting that she had Dravet Syndrome, not to worry. So I left the room going, okay, we have a diagnosis. I had no clue what it was. Went home, got online, and started doing the research on it, realizing that this was a life-altering prognosis and that things were only going to get worse for her.
My name is Liam O'Driscoll. Ciara was born in January 2005. She had her first prolonged seizure at 5.5 months, and then subsequent to that she'd have them about a month apart, typically about a half an hour or so in duration, and then they gradually started picking up, and probably when she was 9 or 10 months, when we got the diagnosis that she had Dravet Syndrome. I'd say she's a happy girl is the most important thing, I think, to us, because like when she was born, you know, we wouldn't have mapped out her career going to college or anything to that effect, but you think that she'd have the opportunities that everyone else had, and then you kind of have to gradually come to the conclusion that she's not, and then you say to yourself, all right, she's not going to do what we expected, but what can we do every day to try to make it as best as possible for her? And I think if you see little windows of Ciara, you'd think she's a normal, happy kid, which to us is probably the best thing. Find yourself necessarily saying them, and that it's difficult. I think we've kind of defied the odds to this point, that she does lead a fairly normal life. So even though if you look at any of the medical histories, it's basically telling you that's not a possibility in the long term, but we can't think that that's the case, so we just hope she'll continue to be the exception. I mean, I think she kind of is the exception in getting this horrible thing in the first place, so why can't she then be the exception again and kind of managing it as well as possible?
I think it's really easy to look at Ciara and hear about Dravet Syndrome, but watch her go through life and think that she's okay. And as much as we want to have hope that she's going to be the one that sort of breaks the barrier and is 20 years old and going to college, I don't know sometimes how realistic that might be. I think it's really important for people to understand that as much as we have hope for her, these seizures are serious, and she's going into, they call it status. The seizures are 30 minutes or longer, and every time she has a seizure, there's a chance we're going to lose her. I'm hopeful that we're not, but it's a reality that we have to deal with every day. And it's easy to watch her at school and think, you know, she's just like any other kid, but she's not. Every day for Ciara to get through a day without a seizure is a great day. But just because we've made it through a day without a seizure doesn't mean it's not a day without challenges. She currently takes 2 seizure medications twice a day each. She takes kidney medication 4 times a day, liver carnitine twice a day, vitamins once a day, and then the ketogenic diet, which is just super strict. All those medications alone are challenging for a child. And then you add to that the fact that she's getting speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy. All of that is to try to help her have a better life and to increase the chances that she won't regress and she won't plateau like most children with Dravet Syndrome do. And she is just super sensitive to certain things that lower her threshold. I mean, every day we have to evaluate what's the plan for the day, what's our schedule like, and then look and see how Ciara's doing to determine, can we go to the party? Can she go to school? If it's too hot out or too cold out, or if we're going to be placing her in an environment that might cause a seizure, maybe we don't go there. And that's a choice we hate making. I hate making that choice. I hate saying, you know, do we go and put her at risk for a seizure? Is that irresponsible of us as parents? And then if we decide that, then what we're saying is, no, Ciara, you can't go play with your friend. You can't go enjoy this party. And in a way, she's then a prisoner in her own home. And it's just a decision that no parent should have to make. But we've gone both ways before. We've said, let's go to the party, and then she has a seizure. And then you feel guilty. But what are you going to do? You want her to be able to live life, but you don't want her to have a seizure. So it's, you know, when people ask us, how's she doing? You can say, oh, she hasn't had a seizure in 7 days, which 2 years ago, if you'd have said to me that that's good, that you're only having a seizure once every 7 days, how is that good? But it's better than when she was having 100 drop seizures a day. But should any child have to live like that? I don't think so.